when she's not only wanting sex, but also not getting it, and he's the one saying no, like,
Yeah.
where is her conversation? Where's her, like, well, now what?
Hi there, you're listening to the Kingdom Sexuality podcast. We're Alana, Kyle, and Tira, friends who have a heart for intimacy and long to uncover God's truth and design for sexual freedom within marriage. If you enjoy listening to our episodes or like our content over on Instagram, would you consider leaving a review or subscribing? It really helps. Welcome here.
We are back for another episode of the Kingdom Sexuality podcast. I am Tira, joined by my awesome co-hosts, Kyle and Alana. And a special welcome to all our patrons who are listening. And if you want to support the show, get some freebies, and we have added our hump day positions here. So if you've been missing them on Instagram, come join us on Patreon because you'll get them there. And patrons also get to vote on what episodes we record. So that's kind of fun too. It's just a great place to be. You get all the behind the scenes stuff. You can support us over there at Patreon, patreon.com/Kingdom Sexuality. The verse that I chose for today is Song of Solomon 3, verses 1-2. All night long on my bed, I looked for the one my heart loves. I looked for him, but did not find him. I will get up now and go about the city. I will search for the one my heart loves. So this episode is all about the higher drive wife. So that's why I chose that verse, because she went out and pursued her husband. She was the one who went. And this episode, I hope, will be one that women who have the higher drive, that you will feel seen and heard, and that you won't be forgotten. You might be wondering, like, why we're talking about just the wives today. Why is it not just the higher drive spouse and make it apply to everyone? And that's a really good question. And I wanted to address that. Women, it's a smidge different with women. When a woman is the one who wants sex more, it brings up a different set of struggles than with men who want sex more. There are so many more conversations happening about husbands and their higher drives. There's advice, there are tools, there are plenty of fellow men to relate to. Even a bunch of our episodes talk about men with the higher desire. And women don't really have these conversations. There's not like widespread advice or tools or other women who you get to talk about with. So we really wanted to dedicate an episode, especially to the women. And I found it really interesting prepping for this episode. I listened to some other podcast episodes and started reading a book on it. And one thing that really shocked me was the amount of time that was spent talking about, in these episodes in the book, about how to get your husband to have a higher drive to match yours. And I was like, what? This is totally like, so even when you're looking for resources to find, you're not told, oh yeah, you're normal here, let's help you deal with this. It's like, oh, your husband needs fixing, let's go check his hormones, let's go do this. It could be this. Like, it had nothing. It was like taking the focus off the woman again and focusing on the guy. And so you won't hear any of that in today's episode, because I found that you could find that in all the other podcasts that you listen to. So then it was like, okay, well, let's actually try to think of, like, first we're going to talk about the struggles, because again, I want you to feel seen and heard, and that your struggles are things that we often don't talk about. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about some tools and advice on things like how to communicate with your husband about where you're going through, and then at the end, just a few little extras, things that might be going on that could be contributing to the higher drive, lower drive, etc. So, any questions as we start, guys? That sound good?
Give her.
That sounds great.
Okay.
I'm excited.
So the first thing that, like, in the struggle section, is that it can really mess with a woman's identity. So, for example, like, if you think, what are the generalizations we often hear or say about wives? Like, what do you guys think of when we say, like, sex for wives in marriages? Generalization. I'm not saying the things that we necessarily believe, but like,
right.
Oh,
again,
wives
the
need to put out
generalizations.
more.
Right.
Wives
Yeah,
should
it's
serve
like
their husbands.
because they have a headache and so they don't want it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Husbands are the ones who want it more, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So if you're hearing that as the woman who has the higher drive, then you start asking yourself questions like, well, that's weird. Am I broken? Am I too much? Like, is this actually a sinful thing? Is something wrong with him or me? Like it starts, you don't hear the narrative the other way, right? So this, like, especially within the church, right? You feel kind of invisible in church conversations. So what, like, for example, in church culture, what do you hear again about sex when it comes to wives?
Women meet the needs of their husbands or else they'll go somewhere else to find.
That's exactly what I was going
Yep.
to say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when she's not only wanting sex, but also not getting it, and he's the one saying no, like, where is her conversation? Where's her, like, well, now what? She might feel like, oh, like I don't fit the mold. My experience is never talked about. I must be the only one. She could be with her, women's Bible study group, and they're all talking about, oh, my husband just wants me all the time. Like I just undress and
Right.
boom, he wants me. And,
Mhm.
you just kind of sit in the corner going, well, yeah, I wish I had that. Like,
Yeah.
that's not it. And you feel kind of shameful talking about it potentially, or, just because you feel like you're the only one, you don't voice it. And so it brings about this isolation and shame and, yeah, wondering like, well, why did God make me this way? Why did he put me with a husband who doesn't want sex? Like, what are the odds that I got put with somebody who doesn't want sex? And then the question
Right.
of,
It becomes more of a you thing. What is it that about me
mhm,
that he's not desiring?
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So she can feel, when her husband rejects her, it becomes a lot of a more deeper emotional thing, right? It's, for many women, sex isn't just physical. It's often a barometer for emotional closeness or, feeling chosen, being seen or pursued. Again, in that church conversation, we always hear it like, okay, husbands, pursue your wives. Like, that's your job. You need to make her feel good and loved. And for a woman whose husband continually says no, or I shouldn't say continuously, but doesn't pursue her, she's always the one initiating. Again, that makes it feel like, okay, I guess I'm just stuck in this life. It's, he doesn't want me. I must not be beautiful anymore. I guess I'm not worth pursuing, because guaranteed she's tried all the things like getting more lingerie or setting the mood or, and when she gets shut down, then it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not beautiful. Like he's
What could
obviously not.
also,
Mm-hmm.
what could also be confusing is probably similarly to the opposite of this, when women or like when you're dating and you can't have sex, but you both want it, the desire is really high, you're pursuing each other a lot. And then if this is the case for a woman where she's the higher drive and now you're married and then the man's drive isn't as high as it seemed before, that'd be super confusing. Which
Yeah.
same if it was the opposite, if it was the man who was like, you really wanted this before and now we're married and you don't want it. So same
Mm-hmm.
for the women, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be especially confusing.
Yeah.
It's
I
like, well,
found
you
one
just
quote.
wanted me.
Yeah. Yeah. I found one quote that had said, men often take sexual rejection as a hit to their ego and women take it as a hit to their identity. And I found that really like, whoa. Yeah. So, and then like I talked about at the beginning, she doesn't have a script for what to do. We have the narratives that tell the husbands, when they have a higher libido and they want their wives to be more on board with it. We talk about like help with the mental load and give her time to relax ahead of time and give more foreplay and all that stuff. I can't think of any suggestions for what wives can do. Like in all of our sex research stuff and books and podcasts that we've listened to, have you guys ever heard advice on what women should do for men to help them be in the mood?
Get his hormones tested.
Yeah. Right? Like that's literally
Yeah.
the number one advice. There isn't any.
I mean, I still think speaking his love language and pursuing him would probably be helpful. Though I don't hear it said. Like I've never heard someone say that. But I would think that that would be helpful, like pouring into him, seeking like what's his love language? How can I be respecting him? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just something like, yeah, as I was researching this, thinking like, yeah, I can't think of too much of advice that's out there for that. Whereas when I think of the men, I can right away list
We
off,
have a
oh yeah, we hear
list.
it all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too is like, have we heard suggestions on how women can handle hearing no all the time? Again, we talk about it, it seems like normal, like, oh yeah, guys have to get used to hearing no. Not all the time, but often. And with the women, I don't, that just isn't really talked about. I can't remember where I put it, but the stats are that one in every 4 to 5 marriages has the wife as a higher desire. Like, yeah, it's not the majority, of course, but it's not just like 3% or something,
Mhm.
like
If
it
it's not
is.
you, it could be a close friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if you think of your group of friends,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
So one relationship coach that I listened to suggested analyzing your desire to help you better communicate with your spouse. So ask yourself, what am I truly longing for when I long for sex? So kind of going to the deeper root, if you will, of what sex provides for you. Like, so maybe it's like, I want to feel pursued. So not just sexually, but like you see me, you want me, and you're choosing me all over again. Right. And I feel like we have that same kind of conversation when it's the reversed. When you hear that rejection, it feels like you're not choosing your spouse. It feels like um, that they don't want you. And so I feel like this one is easily both ways. But for a woman, we are told that we're supposed to be pursued. That's our, I don't want to say biblical role, because obviously we don't say that, but in our purity culture, it's like, well, the man, that's his job. He's to
Yes.
pursue. And
Right.
so when you don't, if you're always the one initiating, you can really feel like that pursuing is never there. And so maybe when you do get sex, it feels like, okay, well, at least, yeah, maybe he actually is wanting me. I just had to help initiate. Maybe it's, I want to feel beautiful. I don't always feel confident in my skin. And when you desire me, I feel safe and seen. I need to feel close to you. So I'm craving connection. Sex is the way I feel emotionally bonded to you. Longing for affirmation. Life feels heavy and I need to be reminded I'm still your person, that I'm still wanted. I want us to play again. I miss the lightness, the flirtiness, kind of talking about, like when we were dating. I want to laugh and tease and enjoy each other again. And of course, the obvious, like I want a physical release, and this is valid too. God created our bodies to enjoy and crave this. It's nothing to be shameful about.
Hmm.
So one of the things to analyze yourself that way, when you understand the why behind your desire, this gives your husband a map to your heart, not just a to-do list. It becomes a little bit easier to talk about rather than just, hey, why don't we have sex anymore? Using words about how you're feeling and presenting it that way, like, I miss feeling wanted by you, or I feel closest to you when we're intimate. Can we make space for that soon? Yeah. So then, yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
So interesting. I'm just trying to think about this from like the man's perspective. Like all those quotes you just read, like I want to feel pursued, I want to feel beautiful or handsome. And then it's like I want physical release. Just like it seems like the double standard would come up so fast here if a man was like, I just want physical release. Like he would get jumped all over if he said that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's valid both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. It's
that
interesting.
shouldn't be your number one reason, right? Because then that
No,
becomes,
of course.
yeah. Yeah. For both, totally for
Yeah.
both. Like it's, your spouse is not there for you to be getting your physical release, and that's their only purpose, right? Then,
Yeah, your
then you're
spouse
just
isn't your
using them
sex
as a
toy.
toy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So now that you've kind of analyzed yourself, now is a time when you can also analyze your husband. Sometimes it can be easy just to focus on what he's not doing for you, that you forget to love him for where he is and where he's at. Being the higher drive, and this could go both ways. If your spouse is a higher drive, the lower drive, you can meet them where they feel the most sexy. So for example, is your husband somebody who wants more time to warm up? Maybe he enjoys emotional or physical buildup, that it takes some more time. Is he more responsive, like that responsive desire versus spontaneous? Maybe he actually needs more connection throughout the day first. And like you said, Alana, doing the like, what's his love language? Are you speaking into that? Are you pursuing him in that way? And these are all like pursuing, not necessarily in a sexual way, but to actually build the other ways of intimacy too. Simple things like, is he more interested in morning sex or evening sex? Some men, as we know, that morning they're more physically responsive earlier in the day. This is before stress or fatigue or, coming home from work, just being so tired. Morning sex might not be ideal for you as the woman, but maybe it's a good spot to compromise, where you can be like, okay, I know I can love my husband better in the morning.
But isn't that a testosterone peak for the guys? Isn't it usually peaking like in the morning?
I don't know.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Okay, another thought before you go forward is, maybe we'll talk about it yet, maybe too, but I feel like, have you asked him how, because I feel like, so say this is reversed. So, okay, for my own marriage, I'll just share a story. So it's not really a story. It's going
This
great.
is a good story, Alana.
Thanks. I've told Jeff, I was like, these are things that if you do these things, it gets me in the mood. You could do B, A, B, C. Like, I've laid it out. These are things. This is it. This is all it is. It's a pretty easy whatever. So I feel like, for the other way around, have you had that conversation with your spouse? Maybe you're like, oh, I don't know. Maybe you need to do the figuring out what I like guide that we have on our website. Figure out what you like. Maybe the husband does it with his wife. Maybe you guys both go through it together and figure out what you like, to know, oh, I've kind of been doing this wrong. Maybe he needs me to make out with him. Maybe we need to make out more. Maybe we need to start with like massaging each other and having the romantic atmosphere first. Like, I don't know. Do you know? Figure that out. Talk about that first. So, like, ask each other, in an ideal, sexual experience, what is it for you? Like, what does that look like? What are we doing? What time of day is it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's helpful.
Yeah, totally.
7 to 10 a.m. testosterone peaks and then declines throughout the day.
There you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd heard that before too, but yeah, because men go on women have like a 28-day cycle, men have a 24-hour cycle. That's kind of like a very generalization. Testosterone peaks in the morning, declines throughout the day, and then recharges overnight.
There you go. That's fun. And then sex depletes it? Or?
That's beyond my pay grade.
Whoa.
I feel like it increases it. I'm pretty sure. But
I don't think that would decrease it.
Maybe we just need an episode about testosterone. We should put that on the list. That would be a fun one to do, actually. Get all geeky about it. Yes, please. Yeah. I'll do that one.
Testosterone.
Yeah, and I think also, because we have these stereotypes in our mind of like what men are supposed to be. Like if I say, yeah, maybe he needs more foreplay or low stress environments or something like that, does that right away make you go like, oh, well, that doesn't sound very manly? Like, to be remembering that God made each of you the way that you are, and to celebrate that, no matter if it fits the stereotype. Just like you as a higher desire wife doesn't necessarily fit our stereotype in culture. Maybe your husband is more of what we, define as a more feminine qualities, and that doesn't take away at all the man that he is and how perfect he is the way God designed him to be. And you guys just maybe need to figure out how you guys work together. And as the lower desire male, put yourself in his shoes as well. Like this could be something that he feels insecure about, that he's not keeping up with you. And I'm
100%.
speaking from this as like, there isn't anything underlying with him, because it is possible that he has a lower libido and that's his normal. There isn't anything wrong with him. And that would probably be a very hard place for him to be too, with his friends and his narrative that he's being told in church, and that, he could feel the same things of like, oh, something's wrong with me. I don't know how to do this. And so just remembering that you're a team in this, and that you can communicate and celebrate both of you and compromise for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the next one was just tips on handling rejection. The first was pause.
Which we have a whole episode
Yeah, I was
coming
gonna
up
say,
on.
we're going to go just a little bit, not too much into this, because we'll have a whole other episode coming up, I believe, depending on what order we put these in. That's going to be all about rejection. And we'll talk about it from both, or like the he and her, noting that both can be rejected.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
the first is pause the spiral. So don't let your mind go crazy with like, oh, he doesn't love me, I'm not attracted anymore. Rejection of sex is not a rejection of you as a wife or a woman. Let yourself feel it, but don't continue living here. It's okay to say that hurt, but bring the pain to God first before you bring it to your husband. God should affirm your worth first. That's where your your affirmation should lie, not within your husband saying yes to sex. Communicate later, not in the moment. This is just a good piece of advice for anybody in a moment where you're feeling hurt or angry. Like the goal isn't to guilt your husband, it's to connect. Right. So later on, try saying, I know you were tired the other night, but I felt really shut down. Can we talk about how we can maybe handle these, like a moment like this, a little bit better? And you can create a plan together. If no is happening a lot, talk about how to navigate that in a different way that feels honoring and affectionate. Like maybe it's a cuddle instead. Maybe it's okay, tomorrow night for sure. Or I like this. Maybe it's a code word that means not now, but I still want you. What a cool.
Or maybe just saying that.
Yeah. Doesn't even. Yeah, exactly. So to end, here's some just some other little things to consider. Whatever life season you're in can change where your desires are, both of you. Just because you're a higher desire wife right now doesn't mean you're going to be your entire marriage. There are so many seasons in our lifetime. And from what I was listening to in different podcasts and listening to other women who are the higher drive spouse, all of them said at some point or other they weren't the higher desire spouse. And so you just don't know what season you're in. So take it in strides, knowing that this isn't your lot in life, or that things aren't ever going to change. Also that higher libido and lower libido are relative. If you're wanting sex 2 times a week, that may be a higher drive than some other couples that would be considered high. And vice versa, that could be considered low for some people. So there isn't anything wrong and even using that like higher libido, lower libido, I still am not a huge fan of that, because generally it's more like the spontaneous versus responsive desire. So just to recap what that means, spontaneous means you're easily able to get into the mood from more
Anything.
Instantly. Yeah. Whereas responsive desire generally needs more warm up. It's something that your body will, as you're getting into the act, will start responding, and then you'll get there. And so sometimes it's just that maybe you're the spontaneous and he's the responsive, and that's okay. And again, those can change too. That doesn't always mean that you're going to be those particular ones.
We have a whole episode on that too. If you want more,
Mm-hmm.
It's episode 177. Go give it a listen.
Yeah.
Or if you want him to listen to it and be like, hey, maybe we should discuss this and understand ourselves.
This one's really nice if you feel like you've been labeled with the higher libido and lower libido. This really makes it gives kind of freedom and hope in a nicer way. So definitely go and listen to that episode. And then lastly, Intimacy doesn't always mean intercourse. So maybe there's a way that you feel connected that you don't have to have full-on intercourse, that you guys can, again, come to a compromise on what works for you guys. And then lastly, I think I put it somewhere in my episode notes, but I didn't actually say it, was pray about it. Once you guys talk about it, pray about it. Pray about it on your own, but also pray about it together. God cares about your sex life. He doesn't want you to suffer alone or feel isolated. This is something that you guys can work on together. And there are, I don't want to say solutions, but there are ways that you can come together and be a healthily married sexual couple within this. So definitely pray about it.
What about the woman who becomes like a higher drive at different points in her cycle?
Yep. Definitely. We've talked about this a lot. I can't believe I didn't put that in the episode.
Come on. What's going on?
Yeah, generally leading up to ovulation, yeah, you'll be probably the higher. That's when you're going to feel the highest as a woman. If you're not on any other like hormonal birth control or something like that, like where you're having normal cycles, you'll probably feel a bit more higher desire around those times. Yeah, for sure.
I think we should not completely fail to address, like, he could be having low testosterone. Like it could be a health thing for him, right? Especially if he's high stress, poor diet, no exercise. Like those three things, or a combination of those, will tank his drive. And you can, encourage him to, or help him through those things, because those are very real things that absolutely will affect this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you guys want to add?
Pray it up.
Yeah,
okay.
That's good.
Lord Jesus, we just lift up every wife listening today who has felt unseen, misunderstood, or alone in this part of her marriage. For the one who has hidden her desire because she thought it made her weird, remind her that you see her and you delight in the way that you made her. For the one who stopped initiating because the sting of rejection was just too much, Lord, wrap her in your comfort and remind her that her worth isn't based on anyone's response. For the one who's silently wondered if something is wrong with her, Lord, whisper truth to her heart. She's not broken. She's not too much, and she's never alone. God, thank you for creating her as a whole woman, body, soul, and spirit, with desires that are good and holy when rooted in love. Remind her that she's allowed to want more, not just because she's a wife, but because she's yours. She's designed for connection, for pursuit, for passion, and all of that finds its truest fulfillment in you. Help her to walk in grace, to pursue intimacy with wisdom, and to rest in the truth that she is deeply loved by you. And we pray by her husband too. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like our content, please like, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and tell your friends too. Thanks so much for journeying with us today as we tackled the hard questions and dive deep into godly intimacy. Make sure you follow us on Instagram to see more of our content, and check the show notes for any links we might have mentioned in today's episode. We're so grateful to be on this journey with you, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode.